How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to talk about farts, and they're going to smell great. What paddle should you choose for your fishing kayak or just your regular kayak? This is kind of geared towards the beginner who's maybe never been in a kayak before and never been kayak fishing. Having a good paddle is very important, obviously, because it takes you everywhere you go in your kayak. Today's video is about what makes a good kayak fishing paddle and what makes a bad kayak fishing paddle. Please don't think that just because you only spent $200 or $300 on your kayak, then that means you're not gonna need a good quality paddle. You can just get a cheap paddle. I would argue that there are a lot of cases where less durable, less expensive, not so fancy kayak will be sufficient when the equivalent price of a cheap paddle, I would agree, is never sufficient. Unless you get on the water on your kayak like twice a year, then it's okay to have a paddle it's just not any good, because you don't hardly ever use it. But if you regularly get in your kayak to paddle or to fish or both, you should have a good quality paddle, guys, and they're not that expensive. This is the Lerner Skagit hooked. Okay, it's kind of like their fishing version of their paddles. As you can see, it has had plenty of use this last maybe year and a half, 2 years that I've had it. It is a very good paddle, $130 or less. I highly recommend getting this paddle. Very good paddle. We'll do a review on it in a different video. That's not what today's video is about. The number one sign that the paddle that you have chosen, or the one you're looking at in the store, the one you're considering buying, is not a good paddle, it's not sufficient, are the blades on the paddle, are they floppy? Can you take it in your hand and bend it over like a tortilla, like a burrito, like a taco shell, like anything else that folds easily with one hand? When you're paddling, maybe you're on a river, or maybe you're just trying to launch out of the launch site. If you've not been in a kayak before, which is fine, I hadn't either. The first time I was in a kayak, I was a beginner, okay, just like everybody else on planet Earth. You'll find yourself taking the paddle and pushing into the mud, or you're trying to push yourself off of some rocks, or if you're in a river and you're moving downstream and you're trying to do the same thing. You're coming up on a tree or on some brush, and you'd like to quickly reach your paddle out to push yourself away from that so you don't smack into whatever. If the blade on your paddle is all floppy, what good is that doing you? All it's doing is just bending up the paddle you've got, and it's just, guys, it's just not good enough, okay? So make sure you get a paddle like this Lerner paddle that doesn't bend. I mean, it'll have a little bit of flex, but it's mostly rigid, okay? It's real firm and strong. Reason number two that the paddle you're considering is not a good paddle is, does it sink? When I first started kayak fishing, I used a cheaper paddle that it clips together with the little pegs, and you can adjust the length and all that. It just seemed common sense to me that kayak paddles float. Well, no, I about lost a paddle because I just assumed it would float when I tossed it in the water. And it didn't sink like a stone, but it sank. Get you a paddle that floats, guys. The number three reason that the paddle you've chosen may not be the best paddle. Instead of having a locking system where the paddle comes together so that it's perfectly smooth, you have an adjustable paddle, and it has pegs and holes in it. Again, if you're someone who only gets on the water 2, 3, 4 times a year, this is probably not an issue for you. But if you're someone who spends a lot of time kayaking and fishing, and you're looking at these cheaper paddles with that kind of adjustment, you're not doing yourself any favors. Your experience is going to deteriorate, okay? If you don't care, then you don't care. That's fine. This is just my 2 cents. This Lerner paddle, along with Bending Branches and a lot of other good paddle companies, it's got what they call the ferrule system, okay? Now, I can put these 2 paddles together, and I can adjust how the blades are oriented, like this right here. See how I can rotate it? And I can lock it into place. I can have my blades in kind of a standard where they're parallel to each other, or I can have them shifted so I'm cutting the air and I'm cutting wind resistance if I'm trying to paddle for distance or speed. Okay, so you can get those 2 options out of a paddle like this. It's very easy. Find the line in there. There it is. and bring it together. But as you can see, this paddle is all one piece, guys. No bumps or anything, totally slick. Very comfortable in the hands. Fourth thing that you should consider when buying a paddle for beginner is the weight of the paddle. You guys are saying, what? Like, you know, this isn't a wooden oar for like a canoe. You know, the paddles are lightweight, they're not heavy. Well, you need to think about how much paddling you're gonna be doing. If you're gonna do a whole lot of paddling and you've got kind of a clunky, heavy paddle, you know, you need to think about that. You might need a more comfortable paddle. This paddle is really slick, really lightweight, okay? Really durable. This thing's taking a beating and it keeps going. Like I said, this is $130, maybe a little bit cheaper in some places, $130 paddle, okay? This thing, I take this in the river all the time. Like I said, the blades are all scratched up. It can take it, okay? If you're gonna skimp on some other gear and stuff that you're considering for your kayak, but you have not yet gotten a nice paddle, get a nice paddle. There are paddles far more expensive than this. The paddles go up to $400, $500, $600, okay? This is it. This right here, $130 paddle, it'll take care of you, all right? And Werner's not the only one. Other companies have lower end paddles like this too, but are still made with really high quality, good product. I hope this has helped some of you beginners out there looking to get into kayak fishing. Whatever you do, get you a kayak for the spring, get out on the water, have a good time, make videos, you know, put it on Instagram, do all that stuff. Just have a great time fishing, guys. Fishing out of a kayak is awesome. Do it. You will love it, and come back and tell me about it and how much you loved it. Thanks for sharing this video, liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot more videos coming for you guys who may have questions, you new guys, okay, about kayak fishing. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.